idea of retirement in wrestling is taken about as seriously as I would be at the Mr. Universe contest. Wrestlers hang, unhang, and then re-hang up their boots with such frequency it's amazing that anybody ever actually steps away from the ring. These performers are all living proof of that, as they're all still going despite some rather remarkable circumstances. Most of the names on this list are here because of their advancing age, with some exceptions, so prepare to feel ashamed while hearing about pensioners who could still handily kick your ass. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 wrestlers you won't believe are still wrestling today. Join us. Number 10, Shane Douglas. Much was made of the fact that former ECW World Heavyweight Champion Shane Douglas decided to trade in his spandex for a shirt and smart shoes and leave professional wrestling for a gig at Target. The franchise hadn't left wrestling for good, however, and has actually been pretty darn active over the course of the last 15 or so years. Now bending bones at age 60, Douglas wrestled a not inconsiderable 41 matches in 2024 alone, according to CageMatch.net. These included a tour of Canada, a bunch of matches for regional outfits like Appalachian Championship Wrestling, an appearance in a GCW Rumble, and even a dog collar bout with old rival Gary Wolfe, aka Pitbull No. 1. Given his age and extensive injury history, it's quite incredible that Shane is still out there doing his thing. With his vast experience and extensive knowledge, it will at the very least be good to have him in locker rooms so that he can impart wisdom on the young up-and-comers he shares the ring with on the indies, even if he does wrestle in trackies and a sweatshirt for obvious reasons. Number 9, Manu. Son of Anawahi family patriarch Afa, Manu is best remembered for a storyline where he was made to look a right tit. The big guy was originally in the running to join Randy Orton's Legacy faction in 2008, following a strong debut at the Unforgiven pay-per-view. Unfortunately, only Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase Jr. made the cut, so Manu and Sim Snooker were booted out of the group before it officially formed. Clearly, being a second-generation superstar wasn't the only requirement for this stable. You had to have abs you could grate cheese on as well. Following his WWE release in 2009, Manu returned to the independent scene, including World Extreme Wrestling, the promotion owned by his dad. He had multiple matches in 2024, including ones with Tommy Dreamer, Hernandez, and the former Bull Dempsey. If you didn't realise Manu, who works as Afa Jr., was still active, you may have heard about him allegedly shooting on an inexperienced opponent during a match on an Outlaw Pro show. Yeah, I'm sure that'll get you a spot in the bloodline, mate. Number 8, Ultimo Dragon. If you only know Ultimo Dragon as the guy that slipped while making his entrance at WrestleMania 20, then you are seriously missing out. And you're a Philistine too. The Masked Legend is one of the most important junior heavyweights in wrestling history, helping to popularize the hybrid Japanese-Mexican style that became popular during the 90s and endures to this day. He won several titles in WCW during his time there, and there's also that picture of him with like 20 different belts, which is one of the coolest photos ever taken. The innovator of the Asai Moonsault is currently signed with Dragon Gate, an offshoot of the Toriumon promotion he founded over 2 decades ago. As well as serving as a trainer and senior consultant, Dragon regularly gets in the ring, mostly in tag matches. He even makes occasional trips to the US too, including for a series of matches in 2024 where he tagged with Mustafa Ali. He might be getting up there in years, he turned 58 in December of 2024, but Dragon still looks like he could absolutely eat you for lunch. Sure, he's not as quick or flexible as he used to be, but considering how many other wrestlers his age regularly embarrass themselves between the ropes, things could be much worse. Number 7, Super Crazy. When Mr. and Mrs. Crazy decided to name their newborn son Super, they surely knew they were setting him up for a career in the squared circle. Innovative luchador Super Crazy caught the eye of many in ECW as part of a legendary 3-way rivalry with Little Guido and somebody else we'll be talking about a little bit later. In WWE, he's best known for his time with the Mexicools, a faction that didn't win anything but came down to the ring riding lawnmowers, which is way cooler than any championship belt anyway, right? Crazy left WWE in 2008 and has been all over the place since. He made a splash overseas for companies like Pro Wrestling Noah and All Japan, as well as for various promotions in his native country. At the age of 51, he's still going strong, competing at a similar pace to his glory days in the late 90s. In 2024, he wrestled for Noah, AAA, The Crash, Defy, and GCW, where he had a pay-per-view bout against Speedball Mike Bailey in October. Showing no signs of slowing down, Super Crazy's insane schedule is more than living up to his in-ring moniker. Number 6, Too Cold Scorpio. Not only is 2 Cold Scorpio, or Flash Funk if you prefer, still intermittently wrestling, but he also still pretty much looks exactly the same as he did in the mid-90s. The groundbreaking high flyer won multiple championships across ECW and WCW during the 90s and was part of the Job Squad in WWE, the greatest undercard stable this side of 3MB. Scorpio has been wrestling consistently since his heyday, even as he approaches his 60th birthday. He had 16 matches in 2024, including 2 for GCW. Both were on pay-per-view, and the latter was against Joey Janela, which he won! He had another pay-per-view bout for a different company against his old buddy Juventud Guerrera, but his biggest achievement happened for a promotion called Super Powers of Wrestling. On April 7th, he defeated Homicide to win the SPO Heavyweight Championship, and then he lost it a few minutes later, but that's besides the point. Of course, the man who popularized the 450 splash must be thinking about other things besides accepting bookings nowadays, given the serious legal situation he found himself in last year, but for now, there's every chance he could pop up at your local indie. Number 5, Aja Kong. Getting her start in 1986, Aja Kong established herself as a major force in Japanese women's wrestling thanks to her impressive size and strength. Success in All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling led to work in other companies and all over the world, including for WWE during the mid-90s. She's continued to wrestle since then, notably making a handful of appearances for AEW alongside Billy Gunn, Dustin Rhodes, and Bret Hart. That is 4 people that were on camera for both Survivor Series 1995 and the first Double or Nothing. Not an important factoid, granted, but a suitably weird one. Kong is still regularly kicking ass and taking names at the age of 54, mixing it up with women half her age in various rings across Japan. She's also wrestled for GCW, Stardom, and Pro Wrestling Eve in 2024, showing that there's still a demand to book the trailblazing powerhouse. And you know what? If WWE want to, say, bring her in for a surprise Rumble appearance, I wouldn't be against the idea. Number 4, Tajiri. That's right, it's the other guy from those ridiculously fun ECW 3-way dances. Tajiri is a recognizable face to any WWE fan of a certain age. Joining the promotion during the Invasion storyline, the Japanese buzzsaw won multiple titles and formed a memorable love-hate partnership with William Regal. Seriously, I still have no idea whether or not they actually get on. Since WWE, Tajiri has returned to his native country, wrestling for the likes of All Japan, New Japan, Wrestle One, and competed for American indies like MLW and CZW. He made a brief comeback to the Fed as part of the Cruiserweight Classic and currently works for Kyushu Pro Wrestling, a non-profit promotion. He won the company's top title in 2023 and continues to appear for them at 54 years of age, his name value being a huge asset to the venture's charitable campaigns. The master of moves like the Tarantula and Handspring Elbow worked over 50 matches last year alone, a hell of an effort by a man who clearly believes in the regional independent league he calls home. Number 3, the Barbarian. Famous for tagging with the Warlord in WWE and Meng in WCW, the Barbarian has spent a lot of time surrounded by some very scary men. Also known as Sion in some circles, Barbie stuck around in Ted Turner's promotion until its final full year, being released from his contract in 2000. Though he's never returned to a major company, he's also never been short of work, often turning up at indie shows up and down the country. Notable highlights from this run include him participating in Chikara's King of the Trios tournament in 2012, where he faced a team that included the Young Bucks, as well as his ventures into deathmatch wrestling, which have included several run-ins with Nick Gage. At the age of 66, Barbarian is still very much going. He even occasionally reunites his old Powers of Pain and Faces of Fear tag teams, but Warlord and Haku are on much lighter schedules than their face-painted pal. It's remarkable that somebody of the Barbarian's vintage is still able to have a great career in pro wrestling, but then who are you to say no if he wants a spot on your show? I mean, just look at him for goodness sake. Number 2, Tatsumi Fujinami. In 1972, Tatsumi Fujinami was one of a group of wrestlers who followed Antonio Inoki to his new promotion, New Japan Pro Wrestling. Over 50 years later, and 2 years after Inoki's death, Fujinami is still competing regularly at the age of 71. According to Cage Match, the second ever IWGP Heavyweight Champion wrestled 17 matches in 2024. This included a match for All Japan where he shared the canvas with their ace, Kento Miyahara, and a singles bout against Hiroshi Hiromu Takahashi that lasted over 15 minutes. I honestly don't know how that's even physically possible. This is the guy who won the G1 Climax in 1993, who won the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Award for Most Outstanding Wrestler in 1998, who had major rivalries with Inoki, Riki Choshu, and Big Van Vader. He is a living connection to a time in wrestling that feels like centuries ago, and he's still putting his body on the line for the sport he so clearly loves. I don't know whether to stand up and applaud or get on my knees and beg him to stop, but for the meantime, let's just bask in the insane glory of the man known as the Dragon. Number 1, Tony Atlas. As well as somehow being one of the weirdest parts of that Netflix Mr. McMahon documentary, Tony Atlas is also a history-making professional wrestler. Alongside Rocky Johnson, Mr. USA became one half of the first ever black WWE Tag Team Champions in 1983. Despite the company trying to ruin his reputation with the god-awful Saba Simba gimmick, Atlas continued on and is still going to this very day. Black Superman wrestled 5 matches in 2024, including one that took place 3 days after his 70th birthday. He competed in a battle royal on a Legends show that also included our old friends Ultimo Dragon and the Barbarian, and in a rumble that also featured AEW's Bulk Bronson and the man formerly known as Palmer Cannon in WWE. Remember Palmer Cannon? No? Alright then. Sure, he might need to be hidden in multi-man brawls, but the fact that Atlas can still be involved in wrestling at all is a testament to his physical condition. 2024 marked 50 years since he made his debut, and it doesn't look like he's planning on calling it quits anytime soon. Hey, a man's got to pay to have his face stood on somehow.